Hey everyone, James Lynch here doing a quick reaction video to the news that former UFC fighter and BKFC star Mike Perry announced on his Overdog podcast, which he does a great job over there with Mac Malley and Ice Bags and those guys over there. They do one of the top podcasts in MMA. Mike Perry talking about how he might be forced to retire. So let's go check out this clip. And then I wanted to talk about just sort of my thoughts on this. And then also Ben Askren had a good tweet about this too. So let's have a quick watch here of Mike Perry on the recent Overdogs podcast. We'll go have a look here.
I'm retiring though.
Yeah.
I did it.
I'm camping in the woods.
They not letting me be rich. They were like, oh, you thought you was rich? Give us everything you have. And I was like, wow. Now was the time I was supposed to have the money. Somebody dropped the ball. My accountant goes, hey, Mike, we just saw the Jake Paul money. What did you mean you just saw it? It's been there. Somebody dropped the ball, bro. I owe everything to them. I'm ready to sell everything, take all of it out of the bank, hide it, either go to prison for a little bit or just get off the grid. I'm retiring.
So anyways, he doesn't really talk about it here, but the tweet sort of outlines it here. It says he might be forced to retire after a massive financial error. He claims that his accountants dropped the ball on his earnings from his Jake Paul fight, resulting in an $800,000 tax bill. So I know Perry's kind of joking here, but this is pretty serious. Like if you don't pay your taxes or if there's accounting errors and all that. The thing I don't really get here is him saying that he's going to retire. Wouldn't you need to fight if you have to pay this off? Wouldn't you need to get sort of bigger paydays here? So, you know, this is just one of those things where I know this is a little bit of clickbait on their end, just to be fair, saying that Mike Perry's going to retire because we don't know the actual facts here as far as like, you know, obviously he owes money, but I'm saying like, you know, how much, like what happens if he's not able to pay on time? How does that work out? Is he able to do installments? Again, I'm not an accountant. I'm on here, you know, talking about combat sports, but it certainly does not look good. And Ben Askren chimed in on this. He had a very good tweet. Ben Askren, shout out to Ben, by the way, who's just doing incredible since his whole illness and situation here. But Ben has always been very good with money. I know he invests and stuff like that. He says, simple math rule for all you fighters out there, multiply your yearly earnings by 40%, and assume this is how much you will owe. Don't spend any of that 40%. Likely after deductions, it will be less. And this is one of those things, and, you know, kind of going off topic a little bit, something that I wish they would teach more in schools is financial responsibility, like how to deal with taxes, how to do all this stuff. As someone who runs my own business, I have a lot of tax stuff I have to go through. I have an accountant myself. But yeah, getting back to the whole, you know, error here, I'm wondering if Perry could almost, you know, file some legal action against his accountant for making this error, just because, like, again, he's the one that trusted this accountant to go over all the numbers and the books, and they didn't do it properly. I know he's going to still owe the money. I don't know legally how that would work, but yeah, I feel for Perry here because, you know, Perry's been kind of a success story. Not a kind of, he has been a success story since leaving the UFC. I remember, you know, sort of at the end of his UFC run here, if you go look at it here, it wasn't looking so good. And this was also the point where Mike Perry was starting to get into trouble with the law and everything. But you remember the end of his UFC run, ended up losing, you know, a couple fights here, gets the win over Mickey Gall, and then loses to Tim Means and Daniel Rodriguez. I remember he missed weight with Tim Means. But since then, he's had a fairly successful combat sports career in BKFC, the wins over Luke Rockhold, Eddie Alvarez, fought Jake Paul. He's made some good money here. So it sucks to see, because he's kind of talks about it here, that he thought he was going to go out and retire and all that. But yeah, it's not looking good here for Mike Perry. So we'll see what he does. But I would think it's going to be the opposite because, you know, you're going to, I guess he feels like he might have to retire if he ends up going to prison. That would make sense. But I think, you know, if you're trying to make money, try and get some more big paydays. Try and get that Conor McGregor fight if he ever gets out of his UFC contract. Like those types of things would be a way to get some quick, quick buck here. And if we look on the comments here on the tweet here from the Overdogs podcast, you know, talking about fighters getting screwed over. Everyone's sort of supporting Mike as well. Yeah, sue his accountants. I'm not the only one who's mentioning that. 800K tax bill from one fight is brutal. Accountants dropping the ball on the level of money is insane. Perry went to BKFC to potentially retire over paperwork. So yeah, it's not looking good as far as him owing here, which is never a good look. You know, people kind of poking fun of him. Like, it's like, dude, like you trust an accountant to do their job. And unfortunately, it's not going to, you know, work out to here. So someone posts this screenshot. Perry's transition to bare knuckle boxing. I'm assuming this is a chat GPT thing. Reportedly earned $8 million contract with BKFC. Is undefeated. I don't know if he earned $8 million. Seems like a lot, but he did have a lot of money. But again, it's about investing. It's about, you know, being smart with your money and all that. And, you know, people making fun of him. It's like he was paying his taxes. It's just the accountant made an error here. So he owes a lot of money here. So listen, honestly, like I don't know Mike Perry that well. I've interviewed him maybe a couple times, but overall, I hope this gets figured out. I hope it gets sorted out. You'd hate to see someone like Perry, who has had a lot of success, like I said, leaving the UFC, have to, change course because of this error here. So we'll see how this sort of unfolds here. I'm sure Perry will give updates on this. He does the weekly podcast, and it seems like the podcast is doing well. So I know that's another sort of revenue source for him. Not enough to cover, obviously, an $800K bill. And then if we look at some of the quote tweets here, as far as other people commenting on this, you're going to get a mix of people giving advice, and then you're going to get a mix of kids basically with fake profiles poking fun at him who probably don't even pay taxes. My buddy Marcus mentioning this as well. If what he says is true, Mike Perry's getting robbed by his accountant. So we'll see if any sort of action comes out of this. I don't know how this works as far as being able to sue an accountant or not. Thankfully, I've never had to do that. Thankfully, I've never had any accounting issues. I've had an accountant for over a decade, and she's been great. So he effed up for years, keeps going in tax brackets. He effed up. So it's not him effing up. It's him trusting his accountant. Does Mike Perry look like a guy, and this goes for everyone. I mean, are a lot of people good with their finances? Do they know the ins and outs? Probably not. A lot of people don't. And I know some people say read up on it. I mean, it's better to pay someone to know what they're doing. Unfortunately, the downside with this is you have people who are obviously making mistakes, and it's costing Perry a lot of his money here. So like I said, we'll see if he ends up, anything comes out of this, if he's able to get some sort of relief as far as paying it. Maybe he has to pay it in installments. I don't know how any of that works. Again, I live in Canada, so our tax system's a little bit different. But as a rule of thumb for me, any bit of money I make, because I don't make like I make sort of a monthly salary based off the amount of work I do, but I always take off 35% of everything that I do. And that goes with everything. Just to be safe, because you never know how much money you're making that year. Again, if you make more money, you usually end up paying more taxes. So these are things you have to kind of keep in mind. But if anything, anyone can take a lesson away from this entire situation, it's double check your finances. Make sure if you're going with an accountant that you have someone that has a good reputation, especially when you're dealing with this much money. Like, for someone like myself who makes like a modest living, it's not a huge deal. But for someone like Mike Perry, he's got I believe he has children as well, or has a child. And he's trying to, make it all work with, life after the UFC, and it seems like he has. And who knows how long bare knuckle fighting is going to continue doing its thing. It seems like they're doing well, but you gotta look at every option and make sure that you're financially safe. Again, he's got the podcast. I don't know if he's involved in dirty boxing. I feel like he might be, I don't know, a partner or something, but I know he's certainly involved with it. So yeah, hopefully Perry can get this figured out, or at the very least, let's hope. And actually, he's got the dirty boxing hat on that I just mentioned that. But yeah, hopefully Perry can. Get this resolved, get this, figured out, because again, I think he's a great success story of someone who's left the UFC and made a lot of money, and let's hope it gets sorted out. And let's hope he can retire. There's not a lot of happy endings for fighters when it comes to combat sports, whether it's taking damage or, financially not being in a good spot. So hope Perry figures this one out. So let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think this is the end of Mike Perry fighting in combat sports? Let me know your thoughts on all this. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.